Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Unbalanced with me, Cerys Davage. I hope you're all doing well. As you guys know, I'm an extrovert. I was going to say introvert for a second. I'm not. I'm an extrovert. I love meeting new people, and if you're anything like me, then you're going to love this episode because today we are meeting someone new once again. Ruby, hi.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm all right. Yeah, sun's out, so I'm feeling really good.
It's crazy how much of a grip the sun has on my mood.
I know.
I'm a complete different person when the sun is out.
Yeah, literally.
And I love that we're both matching with headphones and mics as well. We're so ready.
This is my pretending to be official setup, where really it's just where I stream Minecraft.
I love that. That's great. And I mean, fake it till you make it, right? Like I still have no idea what I'm doing, like on the technical side, but I'm learning. I'm getting there. Tell us a bit about yourself. Where are you from and what do you do?
Let's go slightly further back. I am originally from Surrey because I live in Plymouth, Devon now, but I always get people being like, you don't sound like you're from Plymouth. So I grew up near Guildford, and then for sixth form went to school in Bath, and then from there kind of fell in love with the West Country and being down here. So went to uni in Plymouth and never left. So that's a long-winded way to say I live in Plymouth, but I'm from Surrey. So in terms of what I do, it's sporadic, and usually I have like such a concise answer to this. So usually I'll be like, I'm a disability theatre maker, practitioner, and content creator. And basically what that entails is I will lead young people and adults who feel that they can't access traditional theatre, and that's usually neurodivergent and disabled people, but I also work with people who are struggling with their mental health. And I try and make theatre accessible, so I'm an advocate for those people while also trying to be an advocate for myself. So do a lot of training, do a lot of access consultancy in the theatre, and run specialised disability groups. And then my content creating is really alongside that in terms of that disability advocacy. My God, that's a hard word. I think advocacy can look different for every person, and I think it's especially in the disability sphere about what capabilities you have. For me, I have learned through years of sharing my experience online that for me the best thing is to share my authentic as much as humanly possible and keeping myself safe, but authentic experience living. Cat's just joined me on my lap. My authentic experience living as a disabled person and just trying to show the truth and reality of that. Sorry for that really long-winded
Not at all.
Introduction.
That was great, and that is like brought up so many like segues that we could go down. Hey,
that's Athena.
So sweet.
I foster with Cats Protection, so that's the cat we've currently got with us.
Wow, today. You do it all. Wow, that's insane. That's so sweet. So yeah, let's go back to the start. I can completely relate with you on you don't sound like you're from XYZ because I'm Welsh, and I get all the time people saying that I don't sound Welsh or that I don't sound like I'm from Cardiff because there is a specific accent.
People say you don't sound Welsh.
Do you think I sound Welsh?
Yes.
That's okay. That's restored my faith in humanity. Thank you.
I also have Welsh family though, so I can tend to pick up like subtler accents.
Okay.
But yours is I think pretty solid Welsh accent.
Okay,
man.
Thank you.
I think you sound Welsh.
I think it's people's like uneducated like view and just only knowing Welsh from Gavin and Stacey. I think if you don't sound like you're from the valleys, you just don't sound Welsh at all. And there's obviously that Cardiff accent, which I don't have, and a lot of people in Cardiff don't have.
Yeah.
So yeah, okay. Well, thank you for that. I like you already. And then so what you do now and working in theatre, do you do that online or is that like an in-person thing?
So with the theatre as a freelance theatre practitioner is kind of my official title, but it's also known as theatre facilitator. I don't know why there's two different words. It just is. So I always say to people, I work from home. And they're like, what do you mean you work from theatre at home? But what I mean by that is I lead sessions in person. I go into schools. I run them at the theatre. I will go into like care homes, day centres, and I go and deliver that in person. But those sessions are an hour and a half, and majority of the work that I'm doing is admin, planning, research. So like, yes, there's the in-person element, but that's such a small portion. The majority of the time it's computer work.
Yeah, there's like a balance of like in-person stuff, and then there's a lot of admin that goes with any job. So
Yeah.
yeah, I suppose it's nice to have that balance of, you know, you can go in and be like interactive, but then you can also like just retreat back to your own space.
It does mean that I can like focus all my energy and presence in that hour and a half, and I can be like, okay, I give it everything for that hour and a half, and then I can be in my pajamas in bed and recovering, but still working. And that's a really great balance for me, and I found that that's the best way I found of working.
Definitely. Oh, that's really nice to hear. I love theatre, and I studied theatre in university. Is that what you studied as well?
It is.
Ah, we're both disabled theatre girlies. I love that. Although I'm not in theatre now. But that was one thing that I was kind of struggling with, the concept of, you know, if I did go into theatre, would I just be like fatigued all the time? But it's nice to hear that there are jobs that can work around your own needs and your fatigue.
Yeah, I mean, I've done some professional touring shows before, and I was really, really worried about what they would look like. And I think because it was only the evening, I just recouped all day and then did that evening work, and actually it was fine. And then I think just like the love of being like, oh my God, I'm doing what little Ruby always dreamed of, like that really carried me through. But that was quite a short contract, so like that's why I was able to do it. I don't know if I was on like a longer term what that would look like.
Yeah, but at least you've had that, like, you've had that insight into that world now.
And the shift is happening. Like I went to a casting recently where, you know, I was speaking to the casting director, who is really, really keen and really passionate about access in theatre and talking about the shift. So, you know, it's happening, and there are people out there, you just don't necessarily see them, as because they're working behind the scenes. They're producers, they're casting directors who really are strong advocates for disabled people in theatre. It just is such a long and slow process. So there are people out there who are fighting for us to get back into that industry.
That's great. Well, obviously you do a lot of online content creation, which we'll get into in a minute, but could you tell us a bit about your disability and your journey with that and your diagnosis story?
I don't know if it's that wild, but it's wild to me. So I grew up with a dyslexia and an anxiety diagnosis. I was always known as the anxious child. I was known as fussy, as sensitive. I wasn't necessarily shy, but I didn't necessarily have a large group of friends until actually kind of later in schooling. I think I learned how to settle myself into those friendship groups and really loved and craved them. So made more friends going along, which was lovely. But yeah, originally was just a little solo Ruby. And then I was managing and I was existing, and life felt complex and complicated, but slightly muddled up because I had some childhood trauma. So, you know, you don't know how to disentangle those things. So it's slightly complicated in the sense that I was like, I knew that life was difficult, and I assumed that was just why, because I was just going through things that young people shouldn't be. And then I got to university and had to live alone for the first time. And that wasn't an issue for me. I thrived off that. What the issue was is me living with other people I didn't know. And then you start to realize how different you really are when you're living with allistic people. And it was really stark. And actually, I never figured it out myself. It was two housemates who had autistic family members who started, suggesting that they think I might be autistic, and I really reflect their family members. And then at the time, Channel 4 had a program about autism, and they had an online questionnaire being like, do you think you're autistic? And this is back in 2016. And it's wild that they just put that out. But anyway, I took that, and it was like, indicates that I could be autistic, but obviously said like, this is not evidence, go and speak to a doctor. And I laughed and I was like, oh yeah, like they've just done this so everyone does. So like everyone comes out with this, you might be autistic. And then all my housemates did it. And I was the only one. And I was like, oh, so that started the cogs turning. And I was like, oh my gosh, everything I know about autism that has been presented in the media and in the research, there's a whole nother side to it where there's a lack of research in the different presentations. And at that time, I was using language around like female and male presentations of autism. But obviously now there's a lot more conversations about like, should it be gendered? Why is it gendered? So at the time I was like, oh my gosh, there's no, insight into female presenting autism, which now we just know is just a different presentation. So I started researching that, and I was like, oh my gosh, went to the doctors and kind of scored highly on the initial test, and that's what started the process. I say it's 4 years start to finish. That it contained a lot of pushbacks. I think it should have been faster, and I think it could have been faster, because if you think about it, this was 2016, so the diagnosis waiting list now is a lot longer than it was back then, and it was still long back then. Multiple things happened. It got pushed back several times. They never sent the letters to my house. They never told me I had an appointment. They never told me the appointment moved. They said you didn't show up. So it was a lot longer than it should have been. And then when I officially got diagnosed, it was a really deflating moment, because my autistic report, like diagnosis report, is actually really invalidating. Like, yes, Ruby hits the criteria for an autism diagnosis, but blah 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 blah. Because in the meeting, he was saying things like, yeah, well, I struggle to get out of bed sometimes, and my mum had to be like, it doesn't disable you though. So like, yes, I had a piece of paper that said, confirmed that I'm autistic, but it's not a joyful report. It's not. It's really an invalidating report, in that I don't particularly like looking at. Yeah, I found out that was the phone call with the doctor because I'd got diagnosed months before. No one told me. So I was actually diagnosed in October 2019.
But you weren't told.
But I wasn't told until 2020. I remember it so clearly because lockdown had just started. So we weren't in like country lockdown, but my uni had closed because I was doing my master's degree at the time. My uni had closed, so I packed up my studio apartment and drove home, because I was like, I'm not staying in a studio apartment in a pandemic. I'm going to my mum's house. So I literally packed my car with as much things as I could fill. And it was like a few days before the country lockdown. I was just doing my little pasta shop in Tesco, and yeah, got the phone call. So I was just stood in the aisles of Tesco finding out that I was autistic. Wild. Wow. And then we went into lockdown, and then I had a lockdown to process that information.
That is insane. Yeah, that sounds like a lot happening at once, and I'm sorry the diagnosis didn't go as smoothly as one would have hoped.
I think that's a common story though, isn't it?
It's a shame that it is, but do you feel like the report doesn't accurately reflect who you are? Is that why you're not, wanting to read through it again? Or is it just something, a part of your life that, you've got the diagnosis and you just want to kind of move on?
I think it felt like the doctor was doing everything he possibly could to not diagnose me, and he really begrudgingly did. And I think that's quite hard because I came away thinking that I had tricked him into diagnosing me. And I was like, oh my God, like maybe it was me. But then there were things that I forgot because I didn't go in knowing information. Like I had the most basic research in terms of like surface level that I could just be like, oh yeah, like this confirms I think I know what this is. But I didn't know anything. So, when you're asking about traits, I don't know myself. So I don't know what to share with the doctor because I don't know what traits are. So how am I supposed to know that something I struggle with could be a trait when I don't know what the traits are?
And it's not your job to do that, it's a doctor's job to look for those traits,
And to ask about those things, because I didn't have, I didn't have the frog story. I didn't have the teeth brushing. I had 2 conversations. So I had lots of paperwork. Then I had a private conversation with him for like an hour and a half. And then we had a second meeting with my mum to do all the childhood stuff. His perception and his prejudice was scattered all over that paper, and I don't want to read that.
Yeah, and that's fair enough because that's not your fault at all. But how did you feel, after taking some time during lockdown to process your diagnosis? Did you feel like, if you reflected on your past, that it kind of made sense? Like, were there hurdles that you had to overcome not even knowing what they were in a way?
I mean, my initial response was I was so pleased. I was so happy that I found an answer to why everything had been so difficult for such a long time. It's not the same emotion I feel now, like 4 years. 5. Oh my God.
5 years.
I always say 4 years, and it's not. It's 5 years now.
Officially 5 years.
Yeah, it's not the same emotion I feel 5 years in. I think because when I first got diagnosed, I had a bit of a idea that people would suddenly understand me, and that I'd suddenly not have to face those barriers anymore, that I would find my people, that life would get easier because I had this evidence and this piece of paper confirming what I'd figured out for myself. And now 5 years down the line, I'm like, oh, that's not the case. And all the joy that I felt in that moment of feeling like, yes, a confirmation of what my childhood was like and really understanding that, but a wish for my future. And now I'm like, oh, I don't have that anymore. I don't have that joy for the future because I know the reality now, and I've lived the reality that that's not the case. So it is a different feeling. It's a different emotion, and I do crave that little hopeful Ruby who thinks that the world is going to change, and a part of it that she was going to be the forefront of that change. And I think I had in my head that I could make the world see what it's like. I could make the world understand me. 5 years down the line, I'm like, oh no, I can't do that. It's not a one-person job, and we hit back and we face barriers every day, and it's not getting easier.
Yeah, but even though it's not a one-person job, I think what you're doing is great, just to kind of give people an insight into your life and just the realities of it. And like you said, you're being authentic. And the more people that do this, the better, and the more voices that are raised about these kinds of, societal barriers and the issues that we face, and hopefully change will be made. And, that's what I do with my podcast. If I feel like I've educated one person about the realities of life with a disability, then, that's better than not educating anyone. And that's that's kind of what I want to do with my podcast as well, is to just amplify those voices. And I'm learning a lot as well, like just because I have a disability doesn't mean I know everything about all kinds of disabilities. And I think it's really important to tap into those, different lifestyles and experiences, because it's really important to just educate yourself, even if it doesn't affect you. And I think you're doing a great job of that anyway.
Thanks.
So how did you get into content creation, and why did you think that was an important thing to do?
So I was a content creator previously. I was making money off my social media as a blogger, mainly fashion. I really loved having that outlet, taking those like blogger photos, working with brands. And then I was already doing that coming into lockdown. So that was like a huge joy for me. And then that was all on Instagram, because I say TikTok didn't exist. It did.
Oh, was that when it was Musical.ly?
I think
I love that.
It might have just turned to TikTok, and I was 23 at the time. It was just slightly out of my age range.
Yeah, at that point, I get you, because it was very much like teenagers taking over.
Even when TikTok became big, I was like, because it was all the young people on it. And I was like, I'm coming up to my mid-20s. I don't know if this is my bag. And then everyone got TikTok. And I still felt old on it, which is wild, like 23. But like, people were so young on it. I think I got it a week before we went into lockdown. Initially, I posted a video being like, I'm looking for some autistic women to have a chat with me about my master's research. And I started seeing that there were like these large creators. The people I was viewing at the time, I won't name, because now that we can recognize are toxic in the community. But I looked up to at the time because that's all I saw. And I was like, oh my God, this is cool. And I never thought I should do this. I thought I can speak to them about my research.
Oh,
I was like, sick. There are people who will chat to me. I don't know what possessed me one day to just make a video about, might be in the sunflower lanyard or my safe foods, one of those really early on. And it got like 20k views. And for me, that was huge. And I was like, whoa, people are watching this. And then the next one got like 100,000 views. And I was like, oh my God, people are watching this. And then I just started, I just never stopped. And I just started talking about my experience and tried to be a link between the really inaccessible research that I was reading, because my master's at the time was looking about accessibility in theatre and the arts, and I was looking more specifically at autism. So I was doing a lot of research into presentations and how it was affecting people differently to the stereotypical presentation. So I was doing all that research, and I wanted to find a way to translate that into my TikTok. I found very quickly that the community was not as welcoming as I thought they would be.
Really?
There was a lot of language policing, pushback against high support needs autistic people. And, those are the groups of people that I was working most directly with, and still do, with my theatre company. And a lot of my advocacy is, of course, with me and with low support people in mind, but most of my advocacy was for high support needs disabled people, because that's who I was working with, and that's who needs strong people by their side. And I was shocked, and I think I got swept up a little bit in being like, oh, is this what I should be, and this is how I should enter this space. Things like there were groups on Facebook that said you're not allowed to use person first language, identity first language only. If anyone dares identify with person first, you'll be kicked out. That's awful. How dare you? And that to me is really invalidating of high support needs people who a lot of the time have a learning disability, and you are telling people how they can identify. And I really struggled with that, because I'd be like, if someone wants to say I'm a person with autism, who am I to tell them they're wrong? I have my way of identifying, and that's okay. And I should be allowed to have my way of identifying just as much as they should. And I also, like, at the time, I was like, how dare anyone identify as being Aspergic? But a lot of people didn't know. A lot of people didn't understand the history. A lot of people just didn't realize. The difficulty is when people do understand the history and do directly want to other themselves from high support needs autistic people. That's when we can start being like, okay, I can see that there is this like supremacy feeling, and that, you know, that's not good in a community. But if people resonate with a label that they've been given, they're not viewing it in that supremacy way. I didn't have an issue with that. I quickly became not very popular in those groups. I didn't say anything, but I was just like, I don't like this. I don't like this. But I do, yeah, I got swept up in it. I got swept up in using that gendered language around diagnosis. And we do have to recognize that there is some difference in the way that AFAB people do experience disability and autism as a direct result of the patriarchy. There is direct links because people who grow up female, there's a different expectation on us from people who grow up male. That's absolutely correct and researched and factual. But obviously when gender identity comes in, it's slightly different. But there's all of that muddled. Yeah, I think I would police people on how they identified, and that's not what I do now.
I'm really enjoying hearing just a different side, because I suppose I joined the online disabled community quite late. And I wish I'd joined earlier, but the stories I've heard from, you know, the past few years, maybe not as much now, are very different to my experiences. So it's really interesting to hear, you know, that it's not all sunshine and rainbows, you know?
No, I think there's an expectation that you find a community, and that's it. That's beautiful. We have to remember that autistic people are people. There are going to be good and bad.
Yeah.
It's a dynamic group of people. Sometimes there are bad eggs. Sometimes there are good eggs. We get it wrong. We make mistakes. We have chances to grow. But as long as you don't directly blame your autism for things that you did understand better for, then make mistakes, grow. We're people, we're humans. It's okay.
Exactly. And I guess it takes time to find your people as well, you know, find people that you do want to make those connections with and relate to and learn from as well. And I've learned, you know, a lot from you, from, you know, sharing your experiences. And I wanted to ask about, so I saw that you are an ambulatory wheelchair user, like myself, and it's not always something that I've always accepted. You know, it's a tricky one, because, you know, the things you hear about wheelchairs before your own experiences aren't always the best. I always connected them with like people who like couldn't walk at all, which is obviously not the case. Now I love surprising people when I do get out of my wheelchair, and people in the public are like, "Oh, a miracle has happened, like she can suddenly walk, what is this?" You know, and I always connected them with like older people, and I never really saw younger people in wheelchairs unless they'd like temporarily broken their leg, and then you know, they only needed a couple of weeks in a wheelchair and then they were fine. So yeah, I want to know what your relationship to your just mobility aids in general are, and you know, how important they are to you.
So I think because I was in the disability space for quite a while, before my diagnosis, before like either diagnoses, I loved working in the disabled space. Couldn't figure out why. It's because I felt comfortable and home there.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time working in disability spaces.
That's so interesting that you were there like before Your diagnosis? Sorry, carry on.
I felt really like accepted and loved, and I still do, and I love it so much. Like my theatre company, some of the best adults that I work with, and just the most joyful time. But so I had been around a lot of disabled people, and I knew that some of those people were full-time wheelchair users, and I knew sometimes they would use different mobility aids. My struggle with using my mobility aids was it's the same thing with the autism. I am a huge supporter for self-diagnosis because it's a privilege and it's really hard. However, we need to be careful on the research because there is a lot of misinformation out there. So I'm always like, don't base all your information off social media, go and do the further research. But I personally didn't publicly identify ever until I had the diagnosis, until I had the piece of paper, because I needed medical backup to tell me what was going on. So I didn't use mobility aids until I had a diagnosis, which is insane. Mainly because I was worried about what other people would say, not about how other people would react to me using them, about the fact that I hadn't previously. That was my worry. I was like, well, people are going to be like, why are you now doing this? Well, you never did before. And people do that. I'll show up to work in my chair and people will be like, whoa, what?
Yeah.
And I'll be like, yeah, well, this took a really long time to get, actually. And then they're like, oh, okay. But it was genuine fear around my friends, who are the most lovely, supportive, like, beautiful people. I don't know why I ever worried, but I was like, what if they worry that... I think, in a crazy way, I was worried that people were going to be like, because I just got my autism diagnosis, not just, it was quite a few years after, but because I just got my autism diagnosis, I thought people were going to be like, are you just collecting disabilities? And I was like, yeah. Because when you get one diagnosis, it leads to all the others.
I'm sure.
I'm now a lot more confident in my mobility aids from watching other people, from watching content creators. And I also got to a point in my life where I couldn't carry on without them. So I had no choice.
Yeah. What would you say your like main symptoms are then, like that require you to go through life, needing these mobility aids?
My back pain, but then that moves down to my legs. So my legs and my feet and my knees, because it's all like that system. That's what's the most painful. So for me, it's chronic pain that is relieved. I do get dizzy. I do get a bit wobbly, but those are not as affected as the chronic pain. The chronic pain is like the big old boy, like wake up in the middle of the night, can't sleep, like meds don't touch it kind of pain. I thought everyone else was in that much pain after walking for 10 minutes, and I thought I was the laziest human alive. I was like, I need to go to the gym more. I need to, because I used to be a cross-country runner when I was younger.
Wow.
Not like major, just like I used to run in county competitions. That was it. But my body was built for running. And then for it now to be in so much pain, I was like, I just haven't exercised enough. I'd go to the gym. The gym would make me worse. It was mainly the chronic pain and the fatigue, I guess. But I didn't necessarily understand the fatigue until kind of listening to my body more.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And, I've learned a lot from what you've shared today. I wish we could keep talking forever, and I still have so many questions.
Rambler.
No, I love it though, because I usually am the one that rambles, so it's really nice to kind of take the back seat and watch someone else ramble. It's great. I want to finish by asking a question that I ask all my interviewees, because I think it's such a lovely question, and also hopefully it can help someone that's listening.
Mm.
Do you have any advice for your younger self or anyone else that might be struggling with maybe a new diagnosis? Yeah, maybe someone that just doesn't fit in.
I think there's two different things there. To my younger self, it's hard to know what I would say that that's not hypocritical and something I still am not doing in my adult years. Because
well, you can still tell your current self
yeah,
this.
it would be something like, not everyone is going to like you, and that's okay. Because there's a lot of focus sometimes, and I'm like, oh, do they not like me because I'm autistic? How dare they? And I'm like, it's probably not even that. They just might not like me, and that's okay. Like, people don't have to get on with people like everyone. You don't have to be friends with everyone. You will find your people, and you might not get on with them. And sometimes it has nothing to do with your disability. Sometimes it does, and that's, tricky. But sometimes it's just they're not your people, and that's okay. And I think having that information would, I think, make me lighter and go, that's okay. They just might not like me, but that's okay. And then advice for someone who is newly diagnosed: the support's out there. You just have to go look for it. And I know that's rubbish, and I know that's annoying because the doctor should give it to you, but it's out there. It exists. People do want to help. Companies do want to help. You have to go on a little bit of a hunt. Don't feel that the world is completely shut off. They just don't give it to you right on the diagnosis. Like, when they give you the letter, they don't give you all these services, but they are there, and take them.
That's great. That's very useful information, especially to someone who might feel lost and not know what is out there, just knowing that there is. Would there be any charities or links that you'd recommend? And I could maybe link them in the podcast description.
I'm going to go with, in terms of physical disabilities, because that's what I'm navigating at the moment in paying for equipment. I've been working with Access Your Life, who are a great charity who are helping support to get the right equipment for me, and also can help fund, as in they can apply for charities for you, and also help figure out how to do that in payment schemes and charities. So they're a great charity if you're looking at mobility aids.
Well, that's great. And thank you so much again for sharing your experiences. Where can we find you on social media?
My @ is the same on TikTok and on Instagram. So I'm Ruby of My Eye. There's sometimes disability, sometimes lifestyle, sometimes neither. So don't expect one or the other. Expect a whole beautiful amalgamation of my life.
Well, yeah, because you're not just your disability. You're also fashion. I'm loving your outfit reels. So please keep posting them. I'm obsessed. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to give it a like on YouTube if you're watching on YouTube, or rate this podcast 5 stars on your podcast platform. Thank you so much to Cure LGMD2I for sponsoring this podcast. I will be back with you guys very soon with another episode. But until then, have a lovely couple weeks. Bye.